Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jerry Ford, and I will be your host for this TLC session. We're excited that you've joined us today for using visual imagery techniques to create social presence and promote student retention. The chat window will be open during the session. However, our presenters will allow some time at the end for your questions. Please welcome Dr. Wendy Conaway and Dr. Connie Lauer.
Thank you, Jerry. Good afternoon, TLC attendees. We are thrilled to have you with us for our presentation and excited about sharing our passion for creating social presence within our online classrooms through the use of visual imagery techniques.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Wendy Conaway. I began teaching for Ashford part-time in 2007 and was hired in full-time in 2013 as core remote faculty for the Division of General Education. Currently, I'm an associate professor dedicated to the entry point courses, which are the first courses that students experience here at Ashford. This is a really good fit for me as my academic background is in academic psychology and adult learning, and I have firsthand experience about what it's like to be an adult learner and a corporate employee. Since I've taken and taught courses online and in face-to-face institutions, I can truly see myself walking in my students' shoes. My hobbies include being with my family, walking my dog, exercising at the gym, watching our wonderful Astros, yay, play baseball, and finding good vegan vegetarian restaurants in the area.
And I am Dr. Connie Lauer, and as you visualize my story, think of fields of corn and soybeans in a sun-drenched rural landscape. I grew up in a farming town of 800 and traveled to the big city to attend college. I served in several public school districts as a teacher and administrator. I began working with Ashford in 2008 and now serve as a full-time core faculty member instructing entry point classes in the Division of General Education. Our family farm helps feed the world with corn, beans, wheat, cattle, and hogs, and I enjoy camping, reading, and creating memories through quilting.
From our many years of experience teaching students who are beginning their journey with Ashford, we've observed that they enter the classroom with anticipation, excitement, and motivation. We've also noticed that they express considerable anxiety and trepidation as they embark on their academic journey. Today, we want to share with an exercise that will help instructors better understand how to mitigate students' anxiety and build on their excitement to solidify their motivation and determination toward becoming an Ashford graduate, visual imagery.
One of the best definitions of visual imagery we have found is from the literarydevices.net website, which states that visual imagery is using figurative language to represent objects, actions, and ideas in such a way that it appeals to our physical senses. Imagery makes use of particular words that create visual representation of ideas in our minds, which leads us to associate the word imagery with mental pictures.
Jang, Steinhardt, and Weyer state that imagery is a quasi-perceptual experience that involves the generation of picture-like representations in the mind. Images can be generated spontaneously or they can be generated purposefully. Visual imagery takes us to other places and other thoughts that are not automatically part of our immediate awareness. Most importantly, visual imagery allows us to feel. Clinical and counseling psychologists have used visual and mental imagery as a fundamental technique to help clients feel successfully for years.
Take a close look at the background on this slide and close your eyes for several seconds. Imagine yourself in this place in the middle of summer with your family. I know you're smiling, and the feeling of peace and happiness is much more intense than simply viewing the picture. Visual imagery can take us to places we may not ordinarily go.
Now, you might be asking, how can visual imagery help me as an instructor engage and teach my students? The answer is quite simple. Visual imagery techniques can influence our self-awareness as we create our social presence in the classroom. Richardson and Swan, as well as Dow, believe that social presence is the most important and critical factor in distance education that can improve instructional effectiveness. Betcher and Conrad pretty much nailed it when they suggested that the three most important things in distance education are presence, presence, and more presence. Awareness of the behaviors we exhibit in instruction and deep consciousness of students' perspectives lead to the positive consequences that are necessary for developing student perseverance, self-confidence, and ultimately retention.
Empathy and understanding on the part of the instructor increases engagement, connectedness, and a feeling of belonging for the student. Research by Tevin and McCroskey regarding faculty-student interactions online identified empathy, understanding, and responsiveness as the traits that students valued most in their professors. They understood that caring counts, but the perception of caring is critical. Developing and sustaining the sense of being there takes a lot of thought and planning. Using visual imagery can help instructors develop behaviors that are supportive, engaging, responsive, empathetic, and caring.
As you experience this presentation, we ask that you approach it with a growth mindset. Embracing the visual imagery techniques with the intent of stretching your existing abilities will allow your perspectives on social presence to grow and your perceptions of student needs to improve. Opportunities will open for real understanding and empathy as you become inspired to adopt the visual imagery strategies that we demonstrate to elevate your performance as an instructor.
There will be 4 visual imagery sessions. For each session, there are 3 scenarios in which you will imagine yourself as a student in a face-to-face classroom. As we read each scenario, allow yourself to feel your reaction to the situation. At the end of each session, we will share how each scenario can translate to the online classroom environment.
Session 1, Introductions. Scenario 1. The teacher is at her desk, but doesn't look up when you enter. Her name is on the board, but nothing else. How does that make you feel? Scenario 2. The teacher is at the door. As you enter, all she says is, "This is Algebra 2, take any seat." How does that make you feel? Third scenario. The teacher is at the door. She enthusiastically greets you as you enter the room by asking your name, shaking your hand, and welcoming you to class. How does that make you feel?
Elwood, MCCaleb, Fernandez, and Keengwe report that research exploring the concept of social presence in face-to-face classrooms indicate that when instructor interactions are acknowledging, supportive, and encouraging, students are more likely to feel comfortable in their classrooms and develop a greater sense of belonging, which contributes to higher levels of affective learning. Now think about yourself as a student in the online classroom and how each of these scenarios translates to the virtual environment. How does it make you feel if your instructor doesn't respond to your introduction at all, even if it's posted late? How does it make you feel if he or she does respond, but only with "hello" and "welcome to the course, here's my email address"? Finally, how does it make you feel when your instructor responds with a warm, personal, sincere desire to welcome you and get to know who you are as a learner and a person?
Think about how what you do makes those students feel, how it contributes to students' emotions and perceptions. Posting an introduction response that makes students feel welcomed and encouraged has several positive effects in the classroom. This first impression creates a human bond and a sense of immediacy, which is psychological availability or closeness, between the student and the instructor. According to Mondernot, Gonzalez, and Garrett, online instructors have a responsibility for setting the tone and overall climate for the learning environment through their engagement in the course. Personal qualities and interpersonal skills are equally as important, as both promote a good, trusting relationship between the student and the instructor that sets a good tone for future interactions, as well as lays the foundation for the learner's increased engagement in the material and subsequent achievement.
Session 2, discussions. Scenario 1. This is your first class in your program of study, and you are so excited. On the first day of class, you wait expectantly for the teacher to enter the classroom. He finally shows up for a minute or two on the third day, for about 10 minutes on the fifth day, and then again briefly on the seventh day. This pattern continues throughout the 5 weeks. How does that make you feel? Scenario 2. You work really hard to prepare for the classroom discussions each week. On the days that the instructor is there, you wait patiently for her to call on you for your thoughts, but each week she calls on just a few students, quite often the same ones, but not you. How does that make you feel? Scenario 3. You were really prepared this week, and the instructor calls on you to gain your insights about the topic. After sharing your thoughts, the instructor enthusiastically validates your ideas and engages you in conversation about the topic for a few minutes. How does that make you feel?
Now think about yourself as a student in the online classroom and how these scenarios translate to the virtual environment. How would it make you feel if your instructor only posted a few times a week? How does it affect your level of enthusiasm for the course? How does it make you feel if you do your best work but get no response from the instructor about it? Who will you put forth the same effort next time? Which of these scenarios rings a bell in your classroom? Do you only post the minimum, or are you engaged with your students? Do you follow up when students are enthusiastic enough to engage with you? Do you make sure that your students don't feel left out? When instructors actively participate, it fosters increased student participation, which in turn enhances and motivates student learning. Wodlowski suggested that the increased activity serves to increase a positive attitude in the classroom, establish meaning through dialogue, and ensures content competence. Without social presence, students can feel isolated and disconnected, leading to academic, behavioral, or psychological difficulties and quite possibly attrition. Building a sense of community can lead to satisfaction for students and instructors. The more engaged we are, the more engaged they are, and the more likely the course will be a positive experience.
Session 3, timely emails, questions, and comments. Scenario 1, you have a question about the feedback you received on your last assignment. You don't want to start your next assignment without knowing if you're headed in the right direction. Since you couldn't get the instructor's attention during class, you decide to send him an email. Several days pass and you don't get a response. Frustrated, you attempt your next assignment without having clear direction. How does that make you feel? Scenario 2, at the beginning of the course, your instructor placed a question box on his or her desk and invited students to submit inquiries about the weekly topics for open discussions. You and your classmates put several ideas in the box over the last few weeks, but the instructor hasn't acknowledged any of them at all. How does that make you feel? And scenario 3, you have a question about one of the course concepts and need clarification before the exam next week. You send an email to your instructor and are pleased to get a response back within a few hours, giving you plenty of time to reflect on the clarification and prepare for the exam. How does that make you feel?
Now think about yourself as a student in the online classroom and how these scenarios translate to the virtual environment. How does it make you feel if your instructor doesn't respond to your questions in a timely manner? How does it affect your desire to perform well on your next assignment? How do you feel when you put extra effort into engaging with the instructor without any acknowledgement at all? Does it encourage you to continue the effort? Think about how this relates to you as an instructor. Do you answer emails and questions in the Ask Your Instructor area in a timely manner? What about responding to announcement or submission comments students have placed in the classroom? How important is it to follow up and engage with those students?
Lindsay Hamburg, an Ashford Enrollment Services advisor, talks with students on a daily basis. She notes that students consistently comment on the degree to which instructors follow up with them. She says, when students receive replies from their teacher, they are excited. When they do not, they are equally disappointed. Students tell her they rush to the classroom to read teacher responses to their questions and are discouraged when they find none. Whereas we usually rely on research to support our position, in this case, relying on Lindsay's direct observation speaks volumes, as it is as real as it gets.
Session 4, Grading and Paper Feedback. Scenario 1. In last week's class, you completed an essay exam. It's been 7 days and you're still waiting on the grade and feedback so you can use it to move forward for your final paper that's due in a few weeks. How does that make you feel? Scenario 2. You worked really hard on the midterm paper you submitted last week and just got it back from the instructor. The grade is at the top of the paper, but there are no specific comments to help you understand why you earned the grade you received. How does that make you feel? Scenario 3. You studied really hard for the exam that was given last week. The teacher passes out the graded exams and you see you earned a B. As you scan the pages, you see significant feedback from the instructor that tells you exactly what you did wrong, suggestions for improvement, and what you did right. How does that make you feel?
Now think about yourself as a student in the online classroom and how these scenarios translate to the virtual environment. How did it make you feel to have to wait on grades and feedback? To get a grade without understanding how it was evaluated? Advice from Rabideau and Rotman in their work, How to Provide Meaningful Feedback Online, suggests that when offering meaningful feedback to students, a timely response is an effective approach, especially in online courses. It helps to avoid content disconnection and student isolation. If students have to wait too long for a grade on an assignment, feedback may not offer the opportunity for students to reflect, correct, and extend their performance. Students should be able to use feedback on assignments to influence the quality of future work. A short turnaround time for grading and feedback supports the idea of facilitating a mentoring or coaching relationship with your students, and in turn facilitates a more connected learning environment.
So you've heard the words of the researchers as we've traveled through the scenarios. Now we'd like for you to hear from those who are living it, our students. What did they have to say concerning the instructor behaviors we've considered in this presentation? Dr. Lauer and I reached out to students whom we've instructed in previous classes and who continue to travel along their academic journey with Ashford. We've selected representative comments to share with you. Their answers to the questions we sent serve as confirmation of best practices and a reflection on what we can improve. Their voices are powerful motivators for improving our practice. The first question we'd like to share with you is, what actions can an instructor take to foster excitement in students at the beginning of a course? One of the answers we got was, I like the video feedback at the beginning from our professor, and I like when a professor took the time to get back to all of her students. There are times when I never saw feedback from my professor during a class. I only saw a grade, which made me feel as though the book was my teacher and not the professor. A second answer to this question was, it's been my experience that the enthusiasm of the instructor is what sets the tone for the course and interactions therein. Engaging each student individually helps foster communication and peer support.
The next question that students responded to is, how important is a personal instructor greeting in the introduction forum? How does it generate enthusiasm when beginning a class? One of our answers, I understand teaching is a job, but having a personal introduction where the professor asks questions of their student makes it feel more personable and like I can trust that person to teach me and advance in my class. And secondly, a personal greeting offers up a sense of personal attention. For me, in opening an email or reading feedback that directly states my name shows me that the instructor is taking away from their life to help in my personal success. I have been enrolled in classes where I felt like a number. If the instructor can take time from their lives for me, then I am more apt to engage in the coursework and strive harder to succeed.
So after asking the question, what actions can an instructor take to develop a relationship or bond with you at the beginning of class, one student said, ask questions. A lot of students have lives beyond the computer, and sometimes it can be really difficult after a long day to open a book and do homework. It makes it feel less like homework if the professor is actively interacting with their students and providing feedback or even asking their student how they feel everything is going. Another answer we got was the personal greeting is first and foremost for me. Other actions that can be taken are being more personable, citing ways their experiences can relate to mine, and also mentioning my name in the feedback of other classmates' posts. This will help foster direct interaction between myself and the other classmates.
Student responses to the question, what is the value of instructor engagement with students in the discussion forums, said, instructor engagement helps maintain a healthy balance to the weekly tasks. I have found it beneficial as it helps guide those who are struggling, tethers those who think they know more than most, and meets everyone else in the middle. I have learned a lot from reading the instructor's commentary. And secondly, having the instructor actively interact with students and provide feedback helps more than just throwing them to the wolves. If I'd wanted to read only to learn, I wouldn't have signed up for classes at Ashford. I would have bought books and learned that way.
So when we asked what actions can an instructor take to be more visible in the classroom, one answer was direct video communication from the instructor is beneficial. A lot can be said in their demeanor, tone, and teaching technique. Another student said, video responses could be a good way to be more visible, at least in the beginning. Providing feedback on the papers we write rather than just grading them and giving a cryptic general description of what we did right or wrong. Actually going through the papers and providing personalized feedback helps so much more, especially for someone that doesn't feel as confident in writing papers as myself. I want feedback to know if I fully understand the material.
Another question students responded to was, how does it make you feel when an instructor doesn't respond to your questions in a timely manner? And our responses were, at the end of the day, if the teacher is non-responsive or seems too busy to interact with their students, then there's a lack of trust. We are paying a lot of money to be at Ashford, and some of us pay it out of our pocket. As important as a piece of paper is, most of us are in it for education and to soak up all the knowledge our teachers can provide. If our teacher doesn't care about responding quickly and in a timely manner, how can I trust them with my education? And I get a slight increase in my anxiety levels while waiting for a response. I get impatient, but only do so because I care about my education. And every second not spent for the betterment of it is a second wasted. My instructors thus far have been incredibly responsive, and I am beyond grateful for their attention to the class.
So the last question we want to share is, how important is instructor feedback on discussions or written assignments? Do you appreciate receiving feedback that assists you in knowing how to improve? One answer is, yeah, this is one of the biggest ones. I'm a person who needs personalized feedback. I want to feel as though our professor is taking the time to read every response and that they feel I'm getting the material. And another answer, for a long time now, I've taught myself to accept criticism as constructive. I think the instructor feedback is a crucial part of my personal success. With every bit of feedback that I received on my assignments, I would sit and analyze the original effort I put in, the critiques I received from my instructor, and then rewrite my assignments with the feedback to give myself a better understanding. Boy, this is a model student, isn't it? I realize I cannot better my grade through doing this, but I can walk away from the assignment knowing I fully understood the coursework.
So I hope you enjoyed listening to the real voices of our real students. Using visual imagery places you in the position of the student, gives you a look into the life they lead, and makes you cognizant of the challenges they face and the desire they have to succeed. Each of our students, you as their instructor, and society in general are uplifted by student success, and you hold the key to the processes that will bring that about. Dr. Craig Swenson, the president of Ashford University, states that his 3 pillars for impacting retention are: number 1, a more humane environment in the classroom; number 2, engaging more often and directly with students; and number 3, providing a higher quality of feedback. Using visual imagery can help you achieve all of these important objectives.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed our presentation and the visualization exercises. If you'd like to reach out to me or Dr. Lauer with questions or comments, please feel free to do so via email. So at this point, I think we have about 5 minutes left. We can look at the chat and see if there was anything in there, any questions. Let's see. I think we still have questions left from the prior one. No, I don't think there are any questions.
No, I don't see any either.
We
So
can give
thank
it
you.
we can give it a moment here and see
Okay.
Okay, great.
see if anyone else wants to ask a question.
Yeah.
Or
Visualize your question.
or support what we have said in with your experience.
Right. Share with us an experience you've had where you had to put yourself in the student's shoes. Feel the empathy.
And that's really all it's about. It's a shoe exchange so that we can feel what our students are feeling and react accordingly to give them the best experience possible.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions here. Does anyone have any questions?
Let's see. Yes, absolutely, Kelly. They often have family challenges, and we're human. I mean, we have challenges too. We have issues that come up that we have to power through, and we, you know, life happens. There's one thing that I will not forget. Dr. Harrison, a couple of years ago, had a faculty forum, and one thing that he mentioned that really stuck with me is the fact that the size of Ashford is probably a small city. So if you think about the population of a small town, a small city, 40,000 students, 40,000 people, etc. Think of all the issues that are going on with people in that city. So if you think about that, the perspective that the number of students going through issues and challenges in your class seems to be more realistic. So,
And be willing to adjust and adapt so that students experiencing challenges still have the motivation, the interest, and the time to finish a class and continue on with their work at Ashford.
Well, we can go ahead and wrap it up since there's no more questions. Thank you both so much for your great presentation and for all of you joining this session. I hope you enjoyed the last couple of sessions in the TLC today.
Thank you.